Hey everyone, what's going on? Fico here, and I'm wearing, yes, Florida State. This video is dedicated to my good friend, most awesomest person in the world, Noah. And of course, because, they come in pairs, they're really awesome. And I just wanted to create this. This is the first time that I am doing a list like this, and because I didn't see that many movies this year in theaters, the list to make this movie is actually rather easy. So what I want to do first is, this is basically like my top 10 movies that I saw in theaters. Now, for this top 10, I'm basically just got a couple of simple rules. Number one, I had to have seen it in theaters. Number two, I had to have really liked it. And it had to have been this year. So movies that came out last year don't count. And movies that haven't come out yet, I can't obviously say they're going to be awesome. Even though I am looking forward to a lot of movies coming out next year. I am usually one of those people that has a summer blockbuster binge. I just go to summer movies a lot, and I do not go a lot around the year. But I have gone last year throughout the year because I've been like movies everywhere. So I figure first I make a few honorable mentions of movies that did come out this year, and I didn't see them in theaters, but I did enjoy watching them. They came out in theaters this year, and these movies are Two Guns, Fast and Furious 6, Jack Reacher, Olympus Has Fallen, White House Down, Jack the Giant Slayer, which I just recently saw that movie. That movie is really, really great. Wish I'd seen it in theaters. Elysium, which is another movie I really enjoyed, and The Conjuring, which was very much the type of movie that I love to see, and I wish I had seen it in theaters. Probably wouldn't have scared me as much, but I was gonna be like, it was really, really well shot, really well done. I kind of thought of it was going to be a found footage movie, but it wasn't. It was actually really good. So now, hereforth, I give you a list of the top 10 movies I saw this year. And I'm just going to talk about them a little bit. I may talk a little bit more about the later ones that come later on the list. Now, before I go, let me just say, this is my list. There are movies that are not in this list that I do want to still see. Movies like 12 Years a Slave, American Hustle, Gravity. I hadn't seen those movies. I'm not sure if I can still go see Gravity. I'm pretty sure that's my chances come and gone. Did not see that one. Apparently that one is... everyone's nuts about that movie, but I have not. These are movies that I have seen this year. So if I were to... I do not see myself going to the theaters anymore this year. Kind of a little tight on cash. But this is the list. My list, this is my opinion, but if you guys got your own list, please let me know in the bottom below. Number 10, Iron Man 3. Now, Iron Man 3 was one of the first movies that came out in the summer. In fact, that was probably the biggest blockbuster that hit in the beginning of the summer. And that movie, again, for its usual things like Robert Downey Jr. nailing it as Tony Stark, Gwyneth Paltrow, of course, Don Cheadle was also great too. Now, Shane Black directed this movie, and let me tell you, it felt like this movie was a movie inside of an Iron Man movie, because it really did. It felt like there was this quirky, suspenseful, trait talking characters talking with each other, and then, but wait a minute, isn't there like this main plot? Which is why I think I ranked it down at number 10, because it didn't seem as though there was a lot that was happening. But the bits that were, I really did enjoy this movie. It was fun. I really enjoyed Robert Downey Jr. again. I loved when I saw all of those Mark suits in action. Not to spoil anything, but there were a ton of freaking Mark suits in this movie. So, number 9, Mortal Instruments, City of Bones. Now, this movie caught me by surprise. And Noah's wife is personally responsible for me liking this movie because she's the one that told me to go see this movie. Anne never makes any movie recommendations. Like, ever. Not movie recommendations that go, you have to go see this movie. And this movie impressed me. It actually really surprised me. But that goes with the territory of any movie that gets tagged as a Twilight clone. But that's the problem. Twilight was so bad, and it carried this epicness of a saga with it, that a lot of people are afraid that a movie that gets made for teens is going to be like Twilight, and they won't see it because it's too much of that. This one felt there was a lot more action. It was much better shot. It is much better written. The story in itself actually made Noah want to read these books. And I gave him the first one, City of Bones, which is what this movie is based out of. So hopefully he'll be telling me, you gotta read City of Bones, dude. So I hope that he likes the book, but I really did enjoy the movie. There were moments where it was like, oh no, please don't go into the Twilight Zone. Don't go into the Twilight Zone. Don't go into that place where you gotta make everything sappy and drama and just to create conflict with everything. Don't do it. But it was a really good story. It was a really, really entertaining movie as well. And it was actually fun. I watched it and enjoyed it. Number 8, which is 5 less than 3, is The Wolverine. The Wolverine was I liked the Wolverine. Hugh Jackman again playing the Wolverine. His days sound like they're getting numbered. So enjoy him as the Wolverine, because I don't know if he wants to keep doing this role time and time again. It's kind of a shame because the movies with him in it as the Wolverine seem to be getting better. Heck, even X-Men Origins Wolverine, that a lot of people bashed a lot, I found it enjoyable. Because, hey, if I sit in a movie and I find it fun, I'm going to recommend it to people. This one, however, was really good. It puts Logan in an Asian environment, and Asia just basically gets screwed. But this movie is very different because you start seeing things like, Wolverine, like Logan, can he get a life beyond him being the animal, the man that can't die, the man that refuses to age, the man with the claws, the killer, the Wolverine. And when we start seeing this development and we start finding out the villains of what is happening, you'll start to see that this is much more of a personal battle. I don't put it any higher because it's not terribly memorable, but it's a really fun movie to watch anyway. So it's probably the best movie featuring him playing Wolverine. Now, X-Men Days of Futures Past is coming next year, and he is in it as Wolverine. He seems to be the main character in this as well. I don't know, these movie studios, they're just obsessed with putting this guy in the lead playing Wolverine. But this next movie he's gonna do, it looks really great. But this one was enjoyable as well. Recommend it for everybody that wants to see Wolverine mutants. Sexy blondes actually end up being kind of sort of like reptilian poisonous mutants. Number 7, Ender's Game. Now, Ender's Game is a movie that I was very much looking forward to because a lot of people was telling me great things about the book. In fact, they were hyping it up to the point where it was going to be just like, oh, we got to get this movie so that we can tell it, okay, the Hunger Games is not just going to be the biggest, dog on the party here when it comes down to movies based out of games, movies based out of books. Sorry. I keep trying to turn my gaming mind off. I can't. Ender's Game is a movie that is very full of young actors that act really, really great, especially Asa Butterfield. He delivers a really, really, I keep saying really, but his performance was very powerful. Harrison Ford was really good in that movie. It is a very traumatic, very kind of downsome movie. It's full of this tons of outsmarting each other. Basically, it's the adventure of one Ender Wiggum trying to be made into a military mind, but at the same time, his conflicts between that and just being a kid, of just being normal, is something that he struggles. But Harrison Ford's character just continues to push him and push him and push him. He meets friends along the way, but they get molded around him as well. It is quite something, and it's a very good movie. I don't put it higher because, like Wolverine, it just doesn't... I can't remember much about it because, you see it once. There are some things that kind of just... you kind of have to go over them again. It's not a confusing movie by any means. But between that and the Wolverine, I think Ender's Game left me with a, like a feeling inside. And it also produced one of my favorite songs of the year, which was Peace Sword by the Flaming Lips. Ever since I heard Peace Sword, I can't stop listening to that song. That song is really good. So if you can find it on Spotify, which by the way you will find it on Spotify, but they just keep putting it in and out songs. I can't explain why, but yes, listen to Peace Sword. Really great song. Number 6, Thor: The Dark World. It seems that ever since the Avengers, there is a element of quality that we are expecting for movies that have the Marvel franchise name on them. Now, movies like Wolverine weren't as good, but they were still good. And even Iron Man 3, which is tied in with Phase 2, supposedly, is a movie that didn't do so well, as good as Thor, but you can tell that it wasn't mediocre like other movies that were cut in between, like the Marvel days when they were starting to get made. Thor: The Dark World is really good. It features everything that I liked about the first movie, things that I loved about the Avengers, and they mashed them together, and they somehow managed to improve even more about Thor's world, and Chris Hemsworth and Natalie Portman. All these characters just mesh well, and they say that Loki stole the show. Tom Hiddleston stole the show as Loki, and I have to agree. For some reason, he's just so magnetic. You're always expecting him to say something that's just gonna make you go, oh, but we love him for that. And the story's better in this one than it was in the first Thor movie. It was a good setup, but this one was just, it felt like there was more at stake. And I enjoyed this movie a lot. There's some impressive special effects in this movie. It was very funny. I kind of wondered why the Doctor kept up ending in places naked, obviously blurred. It just kind of made him to a crazy person. That was kind of sort of like the only thing that made me go, why would they do that? Kind of weird. He didn't go crazy when he was in Avengers. He was just possessed. Willingly. He acted willingly, but he didn't know he was possessed. But here it seemed to have just been made, like, kind of insane. But that's my only pick with it. Overall, Thor: The Dark World, very enjoyable. Lots of action. Plenty of laughs. And at the end, it leaves you wanting more. And believe me, most of these movies that are coming up next, these top 5 are like that. Number 5, Man of Steel. I don't get where the hate is. I don't understand why people bash on this movie. The Nostalgia Critic and Angry Joe did a 50-minute long video, 50 minutes of their day, of their life, and put a production of why they hated this movie. I can't understand why. But that's their opinion. My opinion, Man of Steel was awesome. It was awesome. Henry Cavill did really great as Superman. Lois Lane, which was Amy Adams, she did good in that role as well. Michael Shannon as Zod. Oh my god. Zod was very, very, like, do not mess with Zod. And the rest of the movie, just really great. It was kind of sort of divided. I've seen people say, oh, they just wanted to do what they did in the Avengers. Well, I still enjoyed it, though. If you love the Avengers, I do not see a reason why you do not love Man of Steel. Unless you're very picky about Superman's origins, about everything that was happening, about choices in the movie that you kind of don't agree with, why they did it, why they felt they needed to do that. But honestly, in my opinion, we got more action in this one Superman movie than we have gotten in every single Superman movie. Ever since the beginning, including the last one, this movie, I think, did everything right. In my personal opinion, I said it's my personal opinion. I think this movie was amongst the top. But then again, I say again, I did not see all the movies. But the ones that I see, it's not hard to put this one on the list. But in spite of all the action, in spite of Zack Snyder's amazing visual eye, a movie did better than that. 4 actually, but this one was the most anticipated movie in the summer for me. And this movie was the one that I kept wanting a lot. But it wasn't the most anticipated. But it was definitely one of the most. And it was Star Trek Into Darkness. J.J. Abrams, I do not understand why people to this day doubt you. They doubt you. They don't think that you're going to be doing a good job with both Star Trek and Star Wars. This movie, I felt, put those E's to rest. I was blown away. I mean, everybody, every single person that was in this movie, they set them up in the first movie. And I enjoyed the first movie. But this one, I think it felt more like it wanted to just treat the Star Trek fans, the Star Trek faithful, with something more. And I've heard people hate this movie. And you know what? I will not question that because I know about as much about Star Trek as I do about Russian square dancing, if that even exists. Or even country square dancing, which I will never do ever in my life. But trust me when I tell you, if anything you will take out of this movie, it's Benedict Cumberbatch's portrayal of the main villain. I will not say who. Kind of already given spoiler, but if you haven't seen it, you definitely should. He steals the whole show. He steals the entire movie. Away from Chris Pine, away from Carl Urban, away from Zoe Saldana, away from Simon Pegg. I think J.J. Abrams' directing even got less attention than Benedict Cumberbatch's performance. He was amazing. He has been all over the place this year, and he is amazing, and I expect so much more from him. I cannot wait to see what that man has to offer us, and I cannot wait for J.J. Abrams to see what he has to offer for us as well. Cannot wait. I am excited as all hell. And the top 3 movies now are definitely the movies I would consider the best of this year. Now, again, I repeat, these are just my picks. These don't necessarily mean they're the greatest movies ever. Not everybody's going to have the same opinion. Some people will put other movies above these, but this is my list. And maybe next year, if I see more movies, I will definitely have a lot more of a broader spectrum of movies here to offer you guys. But number 3, Pacific Rim. This movie was the most anticipated movie for me in the summer, because when I heard about Pacific Rim and I started hearing about everything that was to do with that movie, I did absolutely no research on it other than just maybe watch the trailer and see what was this movie about. And this movie is it's a monster movie. And I love them. I'm such a huge fan of that series. I loved Pacific Rim from beginning to end. It had amazing special effects. Guillermo del Toro once again wowed us with this movie. Now, it's kind of weird because most people would put, I think, Pacific Rim under Star Trek Into Darkness, but it was a little underperforming, and but then again, it was because stupider movies like The Smurfs 2 took this movie down and didn't make it number 1 because, you know, most of the American audience loves stupidity and The Smurfs is perfect for them. But Pacific Rim was a very entertaining movie, a very fun, awesome looking movie. It's not a deep thinking movie. It doesn't have a bright story. It's a monster movie where this alien race has brought humanity to the brink of extinction. They've got one weapon. It almost feels like it's an Evangelion movie almost, which I hope one day we will still get, because let's be honest, if we can do something like, as human beings, we can create a movie like Pacific Rim, we can create anything. We can create an Attack on Titan movie. We can most definitely create an Evangelion movie. So Hollywood, get on that. You must give us a Pacific Rim with a superior story. But Pacific Rim is number 3 because it just had everything. It had a really quirky writing. It was very funny. It was just so much full of action and a lot of excitement, and well shot throughout beginning to end. Guillermo del Toro's always, this eye of his is it's a whimsical ride, but at the same time it's just an awesome ride at the same time. And of course, Idris Elba. 2 words, done. Number 2, and these two I think is where friends of mine are gonna probably be like discussing and telling me, Fico, oh come on, that's such an obvious option what you pick. But number 2 is The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. Number 2 and not number 1. Why? Because, but first let me tell you why. There's no reason to just downgrade this to number 2. It's just that there's one movie that I liked more. But let me just tell you first. This movie did everything so much better than An Unexpected Journey, than the first Hobbit movie. It didn't feel nearly as... neither of them felt long. But there were times where I think because we now had multiple elements in this plot happening, whereas before it was just one main plot element with tiny little things happening, just kind of getting things set up little by little. They didn't feel nearly as big then as they do now. And let me tell you, there is a lot about this movie that I enjoyed when I was watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Even the previous movie, it felt like it was just moving just a tad bit too slow. Here, we knew all the characters. We didn't need any development. We just needed to put them doing things, and the things that are happening, you felt that it was important what you were watching. And, of course, if that wasn't enough, with the score, with the special effects, with the cinematography, with the writing, with Peter Jackson again showing up in the movie at the very beginning as a cameo. Benedict Cumberbatch again comes in and wows the ever-living effing crap out of me with his portrayal of Smaug. That dragon is, without a shadow of a doubt, the very best dragon ever put on film. He's the most menacing, he's the most skulking, he's the most intimidating, he is the most... You feel that this thing is just an eminent presence that you do not want to screw around with. This is a thing that the world should be afraid of. And that was awesome for me. And it felt like that was just the cherry on the top. A lot of people were like, oh, this is just too much Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. What do you expect them to do? You gotta do something. The Hobbit and the other books don't have that much paper in them. You gotta do something to further the plot. They did a really good job with this. The new character, also stole the show, I think. Very, very well done overall. Now, the reason this is number 2 and it's not number 1, it's because the number 1 movie, bar none, my opinion is As If It Was Any Surprise. You guys know me. Oh, this is where it goes. This is where it goes. Everybody's gonna be like, oh no, you brought Smaug down because you're a fanboy of the books. Ladies and gentlemen, Catching Fire was the movie of the year, period. And I'll tell you why. In most of the movies that I saw, I found things that in this list and the previously mentioned ones as honorable mentions, I found things that I found myself going, well, it could have done a little less of this, it could have done a little more of that. Heck, even in Smaug, I felt that even if it was better, it was much better, there were things where I felt that maybe they were just trying to shoehorn these characters in because you want to remember that these guys are going to be important later in a story where we already know why they are important. But in The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, leaving you from what you last saw and what happened in this movie, it was a night and day. This movie did everything 100% better than the previous movie. Francis Lawrence did an amazing job directing this movie. And Jennifer Lawrence, can we just give her a Nobel Peace Prize now for her being the most awesomest individual on this planet? Can we just not delay this ceremony? We don't have to wait till she gets older or whatever so we can be like, oh, well, let's give her that award now because she's old now. No, give her that now. And she's an Oscar-winning actress, and there is just, I don't see this decrease of her ability to just continue to wow me on stage. There were a ton of new characters, and they all served a really important purpose. And another thing that wowed me about this movie was that not only was everything better, but it felt like I was immersed in that story that I read this year. I felt I was back in those pages. It was everything that I could have hoped for. And I was actually nervous because I had become now a person who had read the book before watching the movie. And I was afraid that I was going to dislike this movie. I was actually kind of worried that I would start to remember things about the book and I'd be like, where are they? I was gonna be a nitpicker. This movie's amazing. And I don't care what people on Facebook say about the characters. I love the books and I freaking love this movie because it reminded me about everything that I loved about Suzanne Collins's trilogy. And it leaves you wanting more. Just like The Hobbit leaves you with a cliff canyon. Not a cliffhanger, cliff canyon. This one leaves you just wanting for more. And I know that there are 2 more movies of this. And I just cannot wait for next year because that movie has a lot to live up to. This movie was definitely, to me, the best movie that has been done based out of a book, like these type of teen movies. I know next year we've got Divergent. This year we also got The Mortal Instruments, and we also got, well, this. And I am glad that we are seeing people step it up. And of course, like Ender's Game, it left me with a song that I absolutely love, and that was Coldplay's Atlas. That movie ended with that song, and I could not get up. I had to just listen to that song again. Atlas was one of my favorite songs of the year. Coldplay, this may have been the best song that they've composed, and I could not I love that it's dedicated to my favorite movie of this year. Seriously. Absolutely freaking love this movie. And it's not just Jennifer Lawrence that does a good job, a tremendous job actually. It seems like everyone else turned their game up. But not just that, they also just delivered a memorable retelling of a book that I was very close to this year. And I'm not saying that this book is the best movie of this year, not just because it's one of my it's a book that I just absolutely love, but it was because I genuinely felt this was the best movie of this year. I told myself when I was doing this list, let me go give The Desolation of Smaug a chance. And if this movie is better in my heart than Catching Fire, I was going to put it above Catching Fire. At the end of the movie, my first thought was, wow, this is an amazing movie. My second thought was, I still like Catching Fire a little more. And that is why The Hunger Games Catching Fire is my #1 pick for the top most awesomest movie of this year that I saw in theaters. And this movie right now, this video is going to a 30-minute. It's going past the 33-something minute mark. So this is where I leave you off. And if you guys have opinions about what movies you liked more, put them down below. Tell me why. And we'll share back and forth. You know, awesomeness between each other. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys had a really great Christmas, and I hope you guys have an amazing New Year. Take care, everyone. Bye.